Hi, I'm Karen Tate. Welcome to the Goddess Calling series. Well, we're here in beautiful Escondido. We're taking a little road trip and we decided to film this Goddess Calling series for you. And today, our series, we're going to be talking about dreaming and inspiration. But first, just in case you don't know about me and my work, let me introduce you to a few of my books. Voices of the Sacred Feminine, Conversations to Reshape Our World. This is my first anthology, and it's based on my radio show of the same name, Voices of the Sacred Feminine, on Blog Talk. I invite you to go there. There are marvelous foremothers and way showers talking about how to create a new normal, the paradigm shift we are all hoping to create in the future, using sacred feminine values and the feminine consciousness. So Voices of the Sacred Feminine on Blog Talk Radio. Walking an Ancient Path, Rebirthing Goddess on Planet Earth. This was my second book, an award winner. It's divided into 4 sections: earth, air, fire, water, and of course spirit. And in each of those sections we talk about values and events and ritual and meditation and sacred journeys, transformation. Good stuff in here, I think. It's been very well received. Walking an Ancient Path. Now, my first book, Sacred Places of Goddess, 108 Destinations. This is great if you're not too keen on travel these days. If you're like me, you hate the idea of going through security at the airport or sitting in those economy class for 8 hours trying to fly over to Europe. My husband and I, Roy, we traveled across 5 continents chasing down sacred sites of Goddess, and we came back home and documented what we found at those sacred sites here in this book. And what's great about it, if you do want to travel to Goddess sites in the United States, we have a wonderful West Coast Goddess tour here for you. But there are also Goddess sites in other parts of the United States as well. And the other project I was involved in that I'd like you to know about, that I'm very proud of, is the impressive documentary Femme, Women Healing the World. It was my great pleasure to be involved with this documentary because many of my mentors, like Rianne Eisler, Jean Houston, Jean Shinoda Boland, they're all in this documentary as well. And I'm happy to say that my little part, I actually get to speak about Goddess, about how Goddess culture and Goddess spirituality is about the we and the us instead of the I and the me. But this series, as I said in the beginning, is called Goddess Calling, and it's based on my book, Goddess Calling, Inspirational Messages and Meditations of Sacred Feminine Liberation Theology, because I do believe Goddess mythology, Goddess values, it is those ideas that will set us free from oppression, exploitation, war, domination, all of those isms that plague our world. So, I'd like to invite you to sit back and relax, maybe grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and I'm going to share with you one of the sacred messages from Goddess Calling. And because we're at the time of the year when if you're in sync with the universe, you're going to go within, I'm going to share with you the short message on dreaming and inspiration. The tiny Maltese Islands located just south of Sicily are home to the oldest megalithic freestanding stone structure that exists on Earth today, and designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. These intriguing structures, many of which resemble the shape of a woman's body, predate the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge. One famous artifact found in these ancient sacred sites, the Sleeping Lady, or the Sleeping Goddess, is thought to be a representation of the goddess religion practiced on the islands in ancient times. Discovered in the enormous underground labyrinth-like structure called the Hal Salafini, Hypogeum, which might have once been a sanctuary and later a necropolis, the Sleeping Lady is as much an enigma as the location in which she was found. Because of amateur and shoddy archaeological practices employed at the time, the Sleeping Lady, when she was found, definitive scientific evidence is lacking about the exact nature and purpose of both the Sleeping Lady and the Hypogeum. But many theories abound. Having visited several of these woman-shaped temples as well as the underground Hypogeum, I can personally attest to the sacred energetic that still exists among the ancient stone structures, which seem to activate an intuitive remembering. This is particularly true within the womb-like Hypogeum, built in the 4th millennia and composed of 3 underground stories. One is flooded with emotion being within this incredible holy site, particularly when the ethereal echoes of sound begin to reverberate within the space. While some believe the Hypogeum was used as a tomb or to practice the chthonic mysteries of goddess, the suggestion of the pose of the Sleeping Lady leads many to believe this was a sacred place used for the ancient healing of dream incubation. This was an early healing modality where the divine would intercede and lend guidance or inspiration while the subject was asleep. The Sleeping Lady of Malta, found within the Hypogeum, was hardly the only example of ancient mortal and divine interaction. That inner voice, that divine guidance, those whispers that inspire us to act or create, entered the psyche of our ancestors in various ways, as it does us. In ancient times, these messages arrived in a dream, be via a disembodied voice, or maybe even in a vision. In the Old and New Testament, these dreams of divine self-disclosure were called visions of the night. Physical appearances or manifestations of a deity were events of theophany or an epiphany. Ideas of divine guidance or revelation might also be called epiphanies. In writing to their congregations, we have evidence of apostles who have had visions of goddess while they were awake. In Greece, Asclepius and Hygeia, god and goddess of healing, were seen in visionary dreams by those who came to healing temples for treatment, using the aforementioned ancient healing art of dream incubation. After fasting and purification, the sick would sleep in the temple overnight in hope of receiving divine guidance to cure what ailed them. Dream incubation was also practiced in sacred temples by the Chinese. Native Americans went on dream quests where they would go out into the wilderness, fast and pray as a rite of passage, and in doing so, hopefully receive divine guidance. The ancient Egyptians also believed through the power of dreams they might receive messages from their many gods and goddesses. The dream time is an integral component of the culture of the Australian Aboriginal tribes, who believe the connection between the physical world and spiritual consciousness is reached through dreaming. These dreams shed light on their own inner landscape as well as inform about ancestors, history, fate, and culture in the past, present, and future simultaneously. With the onset of science and our disconnection with nature, less and less faith and belief was put in such methods. Today, occurrences of divine dreams and visions might be seen as unimportant and silly. They could be viewed as flights of fancy, neurosis, hallucinations, or wish-fulfilling. And with some patriarchal religions rarely encouraging this personally empowered direct link to the divine source or the divine knowledge of gnosis, such methods might at best be discouraged and doubted, or at worst feared and interpreted as evil. It has been well documented what obstacles must be overcome before an apparition is accepted as real by the Vatican. Could it be too many of us have stopped believing in dreams and visions? What about you? Perhaps we may have consequently severed or weakened that vital link to our God, goddess self, or that gnosis that lies buried within. Many people do not attempt to remember their dreams or give any credence to these glimpses we're given? Could we have gotten too sophisticated and big for our britches? Might our ancestors in a simpler time have been more in touch with the divine? Food for thought, I think. In more contemporary times, the sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce, was famous the world over for his dream interpretations. He once said, "Dreams, visions, impressions to the entity in the normal sleeping state are the presentations of the experiences necessary for the development if the entity would apply them in the physical life. These may be taken as warnings, as advice, as conditions to be met, conditions to be viewed in a way and manner as lessons, as truths, as they are presented in the various ways and manners." Well, Cayce believed the information he received in these dreams was from two sources: the subconscious mind of the individual for whom he was giving a reading, and the etheric source of information called the Akashic Record, a sort of universal database for every thought, word, deed that has transpired in the past, present, and future. On the other hand, Sigmund Freud theorized that dreams were a reflection of human desires and were prompted by external stimuli. He and Carl Jung believed dreams were the interaction between the unconscious and the conscious. Psychologist Joe Griffin believed dreams were metaphorical translations of waking expectations not acted upon during the day to quell their arousal. He believed dreaming deactivated the emotional arousal, freeing the brain to be fresh each day, sort of like cleaning one's palate between taste tests. Carl Sagan considered dreams neurological waste products with little subjective significance or meaning. However, he believed REM sleep served as an important survival function, and being deprived of this state more than 5 days can cause hallucinations. Many psychologists believe dreams can help humans understand their subconscious thought processes and attempt to overcome psychological difficulties. Contemporary researchers in the field of dream work and parapsychology are once again using dream incubation techniques as they revive the ancient healing practice. There's no definitive answer on dreams, whether they might be divinely inspired or not, if they can aid in predicting the future or healing the sick, or if they give insight into our own psyches or provide a direct connection to the source. Perhaps the best approach is to not question too critically this source of creativity, inspiration, vision, and imagination, or any safe means that allows for personal growth and illumination. We can look to dreams for insight and contemplate the messages, yet never relinquish our free will to make our own decisions without turning off the flow of the spigot. Good advice comes from Carol Coleman when writing about Yi, goddess of light and creation. She stated, "To bring life to the myriad of future creations waiting within, we must first acknowledge their absolute existence and believe that we can make them emerge through our own efforts. Remember, there's magical possibility in every crevice in the cave. It only waits for our light to release it. If we ponder the gifts of our ancestors, honor the blessings we have now, the internal and external landscape of our world will be lush with life." So, next time you have a dream, maybe give that some thought. Decide, how does it feel to you? Check in with yourself. What does your intuition tell you? Was it real? Was it a prophecy? Was it something used to make your life better? It's up to you to make that decision. That came from Goddess Calling, Inspirational Messages and Meditations of Sacred Feminine Liberation Theology. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll come back for our next installment in the series.